What's up everybody, Bootsy Greenwood here, and we have talked about function, flow, and glow in the first video, and then in the last one we talked about function a little bit more in depth. That function is what the tools to heal are, right? Where those are found. Things like self-hypnosis, hypnotherapy, binaural beats, releasing exercises, and all that stuff I'll have links for in the bottom of the link, in the bottom of the video link. And I'll link them here too. May as well. All right. So I want to talk today a little bit about yoga, which is your flow, which is basically your purpose in action. Okay. So your purpose, I've found through journaling and doing a lot of this type of work, can be very vague. Okay. It might be something like, my purpose is to bring joy to the world, or something like that, okay? The way that I recommend you find your purpose, if you're curious what that is, I recommend you sit down for 30 minutes to an hour and write down what you think it might be for that amount of time. And when you write the thing down that makes you cry, bingo, there you go. So for me, it was bring people joy. Well, that looks different in a lot of different ways. And I have different skills, sets, and abilities that I can use to deliver that purpose. So that would be my function in the world, right? I'm not trying to confuse these ideas here because we're talking specifically about creativity, flow, and creating a discipline. So in creativity, what we want to learn, what we want to be able to do, and you can apply this to literally anything. If you're a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, if you are a musician or an artist of any type, which most of us are, okay? I'm going to go ahead and say most of us are artists in one way or the other. What you want to do is the thing over and over and over again. You want to learn to build fire. You want to create a process that's replicable and not necessarily a patterned process, but a process that can make whatever it is that you're trying to get into the world. Now, your process might shift, it might change, you might have to be creative and problem solve and find new ways to do that because, like, for instance, if your function is telling a story via a movie, then the process is not going to be streamlined in every single movie. Every movie has a different approach, every movie has a different goal, every movie tells the story in a different way, has different locations, has different actors, has different dialogue. So there are tons and tons and tons and tons of different ways to put that out into the universe, okay, to make that thing that's abstract now tactile, that make it concrete. So that doesn't mean that the discipline or the process for making fire is any it can be different and the same, okay, if that makes sense. So I got this fresh looking fade, right? Last time my boy walked around and did it, this way, that way. This time he was like, dude, scoot over. So I just twisted over and then he did the other side of my face. Okay. So those are two different processes within his process, whatever he does as an artist to create, works of art on people's faces and heads, right? Right. Now, what we want to do in this particular category here is we want to put in as many hours as humanly possible. And we want to focus on this and find what our specific flows are. You might have one, you might also have several. And I've talked about this a little bit in Transurfing for creatives, but I find that it's really helpful and beneficial to have more than one. And I'll tell you why. Because when you have rotating projects or rotating, I think projects is probably going to have to suffice. Let's say I'm writing a script and I'm writing a stand-up. Okay, both of those are technically writing, so it's the same flow. They're different, but the same, okay? Now, I can, again, apply my process to those processes. So the way that I write a script and or a stand-up is not necessarily the same way that my friend Jake writes a script or a stand-up, even though the process is similar. I might put things ahead of his process and vice versa based on the specific project and the needs of it, okay? And so here's how I like to approach it. Everything is a living, breathing thing already, okay? If you were, let's say, working on a meditation program or some sort of a work of art, photographing something, or painting something. I think the best way to do that is to obviously put in lots of hours of practice, but project specifically, come to the project, work on the project, a layer. Step away, come back, add a layer. Step away, come back, add a layer. The best things are built that way. That's the ultimate overarching process. Although, of course, the specific steps may vary within that, whole deal. But if you're writing something, you, boom, come up, put it on there, okay? Go away, come back, edit it, okay? Go away, come back, look at it again, edit it. Layer, 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 and then before you know it, the project's done. That's why I like to have multiple projects, because I can work on this one, add a layer, okay, cool. And then I'll go to this one, add a layer, I'll go to this one, add a layer, I'll go to this one, add a layer, and then I'll go back to this one. And by the time I'm over here, I've completely divorced my mind from this project. So I don't have nearly the attachment to it that I did when I first began it. So I can look at it with more objective eyes and say, okay, well, this needs yada, 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 yada. It's totally missing this, and then I'll go over here and vice versa, right? So I'm not always working on 5 projects at the same time, but I do think it is helpful to have, for me personally, at least 2 projects at the same time that I'm working on. And that can be just writing one day and then like making a video. So, so that I have to go back and forth. And then also you're starting to create habits as well, subconsciously, and begin to build a flow state for each one of those things. So, if I can click my brain on and be like, all right, video mode, then I can boom, get in here, make a video, talk about some stuff. I'm done with that, all right, cool. And then I go sit down on the computer, I'm like, all right, writing mode, click, turn that on. And so the more you do it, you can turn it on sort of more automatically. And that's one way to build that process. But when you're working on a piece of art, it's like talking about, I can't remember who it was, a very famous artist who would, see the statue in the block and then just chip away and chip away and chip away, right? If the more impatient you are, I find with a project of creativity, whatever that is, usually the less valuable it's going to be, or it probably won't be the best work because it becomes a rush job if you're not careful. Again, perfectionism is also an issue. If you're afraid to put things out, you're not going to progress. If I sat here and just made videos and then never put them out, I would actually never get any better on video because there would be no consequences for my growth. So it would basically be pretty worthless, And so whatever it is, put it out. Put it out. Always put it out, especially now. The worst thing that happens to you if you put it out, nobody watches it, nobody listens to it. They're not going to troll you because they don't care. Nobody has the time. If you were Quentin Tarantino and you put out a giant dud, it might be a different story, but put it out, And if it's terrible and nobody likes it, you can delete it, and you will have learned a lot from that. You would have learned a lot more from putting it out and deleting it than you will from just finishing the product, because you're not going to get any feedback on it that way, and it's not going to actually make you change emotionally in your body. So flow, all about that yoga, all about that creativity. Get out there, start making stuff, start with a layer. Divorce yourself, come back, add a layer. That's a good starting process. If it's a comedy piece or a work of art, obviously it's generally put together a layer at a time. So just to share that with all of you, and that applies to literally anything, right? Like David Data teaches us about sex, and very much he talks about how important it is to, let's say, flex your body if you're trying to be very expressive, and attain some sort of spiritual, truth or something within sex. Then you need to practice. You need to put the time in. It's a discipline, and it's also an expression. So seeing through and shining through with our creative process, time and time again, going through those, adding a layer, adding a layer, adding a layer. That's the way you do it. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. There's not another way. It doesn't exist. That's how everybody does it. There's no magic pill for this. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please check me out on Patreon if you get a chance. I put out podcasts there once a week. And yeah, I do a lot of extra other stuff. So check the links in the bottom. Go do some releasing exercises.